This is an SBC Media Partners production.
Swung on, hit high and deep, right field.
Phillies fans, these are your glove stories with Murph.
Check in with Greg Murphy. Murph, you got a special guest, huh?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Glove Stories with Murph. Great to have you with us. Our Glove Stories with Murph is sponsored by BetPark's sportsbook and casino app, the Shine Vintage Sports, and the great folks in Phillies Nation. We thank them for their support, and we're really excited to welcome in this week's guest. He spent over 50 years in the game of baseball and has done just about everything you can imagine, from being a player in the big leagues to being a coach and a scout and a manager as well, and so much more. And also just a great person to be around. And we learned that when he was the manager of the Phillies from 2015 to 2017. We welcome in Pete Mackanin. Pete, so good to see you, and thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
No problem. Great to see you. I'm happy that you're healthy, and that's the main thing. The older you get, you want to stay healthy, and that's what we're hopefully going to continue to do.
Keep on knocking wood. That's what we're doing every day.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about I just said 50 years in baseball. When you stop to think about that, first of all, what an awesome way to make a living, right? You get a chance to be in this beautiful game, and it started for you obviously as a outstanding high school player, and you get drafted out of high school. Did you ever think, was it possible to believe that you'd spend 50 years in the game of baseball?
Well, when you said I was an outstanding high school player, it reminds me of Larry Bowa's issues about not making his team.
Yeah.
My junior year in high school, I was on the team. I hit 209 in high school in my junior year. I ended up turning into had a better hitter when I was a senior. But it's pretty hard to believe, especially now looking back on the roller coaster ride that it's been. But plus I've signed with the Washington Senators, who hardly anybody knows who they are now anyway.
I know who they are. And that's the thing. So a fourth round pick by the Washington Senators. You were an 18-year-old coming out of high school out of Chicago.
17.
17.
I turned 18 August 1st.
That's right, because your birthday's coming up. I knew that. But so what was that like? I mean, here you are kind of being uprooted, obviously, from the family and heading to rookie ball. And you talk about a change of lifestyle. Here you are, a professional baseball player at that.
It's funny because back then, players, the amateur players didn't, in baseball especially, they didn't spend that much time worrying about being drafted. We knew there were scouts around, but it didn't seem real to me anyway, especially hitting 209 my junior year. So I never really even had a thought about it. But apparently my scout told me later on, he came to see a pitcher on our team play, and he saw me make a play taking ground balls at third base one day. And he said, "Hey, I like that kid's actions." And he looked at, I was probably at the time 6'1", maybe 6'6", 165 pounds or whatever. And he said that he thought that I would grow and get stronger and so on and so forth. So, and I had a relatively good career as a player.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the defense, because I knew that's kind of where you excelled, obviously, defensively. But you made a pretty – well, I'm giving you a lot of kudos. Just a second. Thanks. You made a pretty rapid ascent through the minor leagues. I mean, you were only down there for 4 years. Every season, it seemed you jumped the level. And, I mean, you had to be doing something right at that point.
Well, it's funny. I look back at those playing, and I had some good years in the minor leagues and a couple of decent years in the big leagues. The thing about it was that I was kind of numb through the whole thing. When you look at my statistics in my first 4 years in the minor leagues, they weren't very good. And they were trying to get me up and out so they didn't have to watch me play anymore. But I was fortunate enough to get, I got to the big leagues when I was 21, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for it. Whitey Herzog was the manager, and he got fired at the end of that. He got fired Yeah, that was at the end of that year. Yeah, it was the end of the year. Billy Martin took over. So I went up for like 6 weeks, my first stint in the big leagues in Texas. And then I got sent down. And when I got back in September as a call-up, Billy Martin was the manager. So it was
What was that like? I mean, you talk about two baseball lifers, Herzog and Billy Martin, two guys that if you're a baseball fan, you certainly know an awful lot about. What was it like? Were they similar kind of managers? I think kind of.
Not really. Whitey. Let's put it this way, Murph. Back then I wasn't one of those players who at that young age who was measuring, up my manager, checking out what do I thought of. I just went with the flow. He is what he is and whatever. And certainly Whitey was a lot more, let's put it, easier going than Billy. Billy was a little bit more feisty, to say the least. And the thing about Billy was that he respected you enough to where but all you had to do is play hard for Billy. He might not have liked you as a player or whatever, but if you played hard, you had no problem with Billy Martin. The same thing with Whitey Herzog. Whitey was just easy to get along with us, but I didn't hit much for him. It was a pleasure to see both of these guys in action.
Yeah, I would imagine it was. And so let's go back, because you make your debut late in 73, I think it was, right? And you're getting a chance to play a little bit, right? And
check this out.
Yeah.
My first game in the big leagues, the day I got there, David Clyde, the 18-year-old, was signed, if you remember him. And I was hoping I wouldn't play when he made his debut that next day, and they didn't play me on that game. But the next day they played me, and I played shortstop. You want to talk about glove? What's the name of the show? Gloves. Yeah. We're playing the White Sox. I'm from Chicago. I knew it was on television. I'm a nervous wreck at play. My knees were shaking. I'm at shortstop. Once again, I wasn't ready for the big leagues, but I was out there, and first ball of the game, ground ball to me. It's like I take 2 steps to my right, I get in front of it. It takes one of those funny little hops, hits the heel of my glove. I make an error, first batter of the game. And I'm right there. I said, "You got to be kidding me. This doesn't look good." The umpire, I think it was Bill Kunkel, he came over and he said, "Hey, that's okay, kid. You're going to get a ground ball, or you're going to turn a double play." I got a 2-hop ground ball right at me, threw it in the right field. The first 2 hitters of the game, I made 2 errors. You talk about being scared to death the rest of the game. I got through it, and I made the next game. I made another error, but then the following 30 games I played in, I didn't make an error. I played very good defense, but didn't hit much.
Yeah, well, what do you remember about? Yeah, but that's a great one. But what do you remember about your first hit? Because you got it in your second game that you played, and you went on a torrid 2-game hit streak. You had another one the next day. So, what do you remember about that?
Well, the thing I remember, the first major league pitcher I faced it wasn't a hard throwing. You think, okay, you get to the big leagues, they're going to throw 100 miles an hour. They're just going to have nasty stuff. Wilbur Wood, a big fat knuckleball pitcher. I shouldn't say fat. He was pudgy. Knuckleballs, all 4. I grounded out to third base 4 times. Just at least I hit the ball, right?
Yeah, right.
And it was a doubleheader. And the second game was when I got my first hit off of Stan Bonson, who was a pretty prolific pitcher in his day.
Yeah, so a pretty special moment, obviously, at that point. Family was there at that point. Do you remember?
No, this was in Texas. My family was in Chicago. So back then they didn't travel like they do.
They didn't get on the charter.
They didn't even want to watch me play, so they didn't come out to see me play.
You said a couple times that you weren't ready for the big leagues. You weren't ready for the big leagues. But look, you spent parts of 9 seasons in the big leagues. You played 130 games, I think, one season with Montreal. So at some point, you must have felt like, okay, I belong. Do you remember when that kind of started happening for you?
It's funny because my first year, not my first year, but when I got traded to the Expos, I remember playing in Shea Stadium, and Tom Seaver was pitching. And I was scuffling through to see if I was wondering if I was good enough to play in the big leagues, right? It just kind of wasn't sure. And I went 0 for 4 against Tom Seaver. And I remember going into the clubhouse and taking a shower thinking, well, you know what? That's Tom Seaver. And then it hit me when I got to my hotel room. I said, wait a minute. If you want to play in the big leagues, you better not think that it's okay because it's Tom Seaver, because there's other Tom Seavers out there. I mean, they're not quite Tom Seaver, but there's other really good. And if you want to play here, you better start competing, and instead of making those kind of comments. And I did. And after about a month or two, I started feeling a lot better about myself. And then as it went along, you keep battling and fighting and try to do the best you can. And I lasted. The thing about me is, you said I must have been doing something right. For those 9 seasons, I had a .226 lifetime batting average. Now it's pretty hard to stay in the big leagues 9 years, when you have a .226 batting average. But the thing I did well is I could play multiple positions. I could run well enough to steal a base here and there. I could go from first to third and score from first at home. I knew I was a good bunter. I did all the little things right. I could move a runner. I played hard and didn't make a lot of stupid mistakes. Well, a couple that inevitable. Yeah,
Along the way, I would imagine, you obviously get more confident, you get a little bit more comfortable in your own skin, but you did have some success, as you played, right? Yeah. I'm getting depressed over here, Pete. No, I looked back at your numbers, and there were seasons where, I think you probably finished up the season, you felt like, okay, that was pretty good, right?
Well, yeah, when I my first year in the big leagues, with the Expos, I had 12 home runs, and I'll never forget. We're going into September. I had 12 home runs and I think 40, 50-ish ribbies, and I was hitting about 260 with a month to go. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? For my first full year in the big leagues, that's not a bad year. It's a good start to build on. And so what I did was, in the month of September, I just made sure, I said, Pete, don't screw this up. Instead of trying to hit 270 or 280 the rest, I played, I won't say scared, but I played very defensively and didn't really get after it. And my batting average just went way down. And, these are the type of things that fortunately you can use to teach young players about, that type of thing. My motto, my main motto is that I'm an experienced baseball guy. This would be what I tell the players. I'm experienced, and what experience is an accumulation of mistakes made over time. And I've made every mistake you can make, and you share that with the young player. And if they're smart, they listen to you, and if they're not, then they go their own way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that it certainly probably was a big part of what made you successful as a coach and scout and a manager as well. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to ask you, from a teammate standpoint, you played with a lot of really talented guys when you were in Philadelphia. You were in Philly for a short period as a player, but those were pretty good teams. Those were teams that were contending for the National League pennant at the time. They were contending for a World Series. You played with Larry Bowa, I know there was a great deal of respect as you watched him play. Who were some of the guys that you remember and think to yourself, wow, how cool was that I got a chance to play with him?
Well, I got picked up on waivers at the end of the 78 season, and they were going for the division. And I pinch hit and drove in a game-winning run. And it turned out to be the game-winning go-ahead run in like a 7th or 8th inning. I grounded out to short, but the guy in third scored, type of thing. So I'll take it. I contributed. But that Pete Rose was on that team. Bowa, Manny Trio, Schmitty, Luzinski, Carlton. It was kind of It was fun. It was fun at the same time, a little intimidating, for me, because I had come from the Expos, which wasn't that good of a team at the time, and joined the Phillies. And then, unfortunately, I made the team the following year, but I hurt my elbow and I was out most of the year. And that was 79. And actually, 80 was the year they came out with orthoscopy. 79, they didn't have it. So
okay. Yeah. Hey, I just wanted, I didn't get a chance to preface this by saying we got a special guest coming on.
It just scared me when it came on the screen.
It materializes anywhere. And he wanted to come on and say hi, the voice of the Philadelphia Phillies or radio.
Hey, Pete, what time is it there?
It's 20 to 11.
We're just waking up.
That's an inside joke.
Yeah.
Scott, I know you wanted to jump on and ask Pete a question here on Glove Stories. So the floor is yours. It's kind of like this is your life, Pete.
Pete, I want to know how you keep your hair looking so good.
I just spit in my hands and just push it back.
Hey, why don't you tell us a harrowing story of your days playing in Venezuela?
There you go.
Well, where can I begin? My best, the thing about Venezuela was I loved it there. My wife loved it. It was a great country at the time, and that I spent there as a player and as a manager. But the thing that stuck out with me is when I managed there, I managed in Maracaibo 4 years, I think it was, but we would have a game, let's say in Aragua or Maracay, and it was a 7-hour bus trip back to Maracaibo. So after a night game in Maracay, we would have to take the bus back to Maracaibo, and got in early in the morning when the sun would be coming up. Well, our bus didn't have anywhere to go, didn't have a bathroom on the bus. So every 20 minutes, somebody said, Pete, I have to go to the bath. I have to go to the bathroom. Finally, I said, look, here's what we're doing. We're going to stop and eat. We're going to stop at this place down the road in 2 hours. We're going to stop at another 2 hours, and then we're going to go on our way. We might make one more stop, but that's it. And it worked. And it was kind of funny because every time we'd stop in the middle of the countryside, there'd be an oasis with this one, like not a gas station, but I forget what they call them, but just a refueling place. But the guy, I said, look, you got 20 minutes. I knew that it'd take longer, but I wanted to say 20 minutes. So they'd get their food and they'd go back on the road. And on the other side of the road, they'd set up bottles, and about 8 or 10 of them would bring out their pistols, and they'd start target practice. Yeah. So I'd come walking out, I got my stuff, and I'd go, okay, it's been a half an hour. All right, guys, put the guns away. Let's go. They keep shooting. And I'd go, come on, let's go.
Totally happens today as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No doubt. That's great stuff. Scott, you got anything else for Pete? I did. Do you want to ask him about his days with us? I mean, how much he enjoyed spending time with you? I'm sure you did, right, Pete?
I've got two gloves.
I'm sure he had a great time hanging with me every day.
No, I enjoyed it. I miss you guys. That's the thing I miss the most is the people that I've worked with, and it's been. I got a couple of pretty good glove stories that I could tell you if you want to hear it.
Go ahead.
So I'm in Minnesota, and we're in Yankees. We're playing the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. This is 1980. Gene Mauch's the manager. And there's 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth with the tying run on third base. And Willie Randolph is the hitter. And Brad Corbett was our closer at the time. He had a nasty sinker. And Gene used to have right-handed hitter. He would play the shortstop way in the hole, like a shift. I'd be right in the hole. Sure enough, 2 outs, tying run on third base. Willie hits a high chopper over the pitcher's head. And I right away, as soon as he hit it, I said, you got to be kidding me. So I sprint at this ball, and I make probably the best play I've ever made in my life anywhere. I barehanded, it's boom, boom, and I throw the guy out, get it by a half a step. I'm going up the runway. Gene says, you know, if you ran for mayor in Minneapolis, you'd become the next mayor. That was a great play. Blah. So at the time, we didn't have cell phones. So I get to the hotel room and I call Nancy, my wife, and just say, you know, and the game was on TV. So I call her, I gave her one of those, you know, wait till she. The minute she said, Pete, you won't believe this. I said, what? She said, I've been in the parking lot this whole time with our son, Shane. There was a tornado that touched down right outside of Minneapolis. We had to go in and I said, so you didn't see the game? She said, no, nobody saw the game because of the tornado. I said, what? Are you the best thing I've ever done in my major league career and nobody saw it? So,
well, you should have tweeted it out at that point, you know? I mean,
that was a good play.
Oh, that's funny. So did you ever get to see it again? Was there a replay of it anywhere?
Actually, there was a thing back then. They used to call it Twib Notes, This Week in Baseball.
Yeah, sure.
And on Saturdays or whenever it was. And I was Defensive Play of the Week. So
you made Twib Notes.
Yeah, Twib Notes was huge. I remember that as a kid, for sure.
Yeah. But at the time, my wife wasn't very happy. So I said, okay, well, I'm sorry.
It's the best thing I ever did. We have another guest that's coming in, popping in. You might remember that guy as well.
McCarthy.
Television voice of the Philadelphia Phillies. Tom
Hey,
McCarthy.
is your hair still fake?
Yeah.
You're retired now. You don't need to wear your fake hair anymore.
You get a lot of comments about the hair, don't you, Pete?
Well, yeah, you know, my son's not real happy with me because he's got power alleys going.
I'll tell you, a few years ago, this is some years ago, we were at a charity event. It was one of those bowling events that some player had. I don't know which player had it, but all the players, all the coaches that are there, everybody's getting introduced. And I'm up in the balcony of the facility. There's, you know, pool tables and, you know, gaming tables and different stuff. And there's a lot of fans just hanging around. They don't know I'm standing there. I'm just kind of laying in the weeds. And they're introducing everybody. Hey, here's Jimmy Rollins. Here's so-and-so. Here's whatever. And they go, here's Pete Mackanin. And clear as a bell, the guys next to me go, they all look at each other. They all say, man, he's got great hair.
Well, that's something going. I got that going for me.
Sure do. You sure do.
You got a nice chair there, too. Is that like a presidential suite?
No, it's like a Southwest type chair. You know,
it's got a nice little
setup. Rivets in it.
No, it's a little, you know, like cowboy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because you're a cowboy.
I still have. Remember when Chooch bought everybody those cowboy hats?
Yeah,
I still have it here. I wear it once in a while.
Oh, you do?
Like I'm in the Southwest, like I'm a cowboy.
You can get away with that out there in Arizona.
Oh yeah.
Tom, did you have something specific you wanted to ask Pete?
No, not really.
Okay. Well prepared as always. Thank you, Tom.
Oh boy.
You know what? Why do I bring these two anywhere? Right? No. You know, when they heard that you were coming on, Pete, they like clamored. They were fighting to get to be a part of Glove Stories, and I'm very selective. But
I debated on whether I was going to shower before or after the. I wasn't sure which.
I'll tell you, one of my more interesting days on this job and doing this job was the day that Ryan Sandberg quit and that Pete took over. And I don't know if you guys had already talked a little bit about that, but I still remember, I remember it very vividly going in to, you know, record the manager's show amid tons of boxes that are being filled up and loaded up and basically hauled away.
Right.
And Pete and I are sitting on the couch in the manager's office in Rhino's old office. And we're getting ready to tape the pregame show. You remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you look like a guy who had been blindsided a little bit.
Yeah, what was the feeling on that day for you, Pete?
Well, I was in the video room at the time and
watching the movie.
Yeah, Greg Castoriato came up. Greg Castoriato came down and said, Pete, but yeah, it was Ruben. Ruben wants to see you upstairs. And I think Pat Gillick was there too. Anyway, Ruben wants to see you. Immediately, I thought, I'm getting fired. You know, team's not doing well. I said, I'm fired again, you know. So I said, you know what he wants? Greg had it like a stern face, and he said, "No, I don't know what they, I don't know. I don't know anything." So I walk up, I take the elevator up, and I sit down, and basically they filled me in on that Rhino had quit and resigned, and Ruben said, "We'd like you to manage the rest of the homestand. There's 3 games left, right? We'd like you to take over for the next 3 games." I went, "Oh, wow, really?
What an opportunity."
And it's funny because when I took over the Cincinnati Reds team, my contract was for each day you're managing the team, you will get paid at this rate. So,
Really?
oh yeah. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? This is a half a season left. Give me a chance. I mean, anyway, so I think we won 2 out of 3. We might have won all 3 games that weekend, and I'm not sure. And then Ruben said, "Well, we'll you go on the road trip, and we'll see how it went." It was a West Coast trip, and I'll never forget. We really played real good baseball, and I thought, well, maybe I'll get another week out of this or something. Anyway, and then it just kind of went from there. And at that point, like I said, I just kept going day by day and hoping that we'd win.
Peter, a couple of times you said when we were talking about your playing days that you didn't feel like you were ready. You weren't ready. But when you got the opportunity, you had managed briefly in Pittsburgh, briefly in Cincinnati. When you got the opportunity in Philly, did you think to yourself, I'm ready for this. Give me that opportunity and I can run with it?
Yeah, well, the thing is, as a manager, I always felt that I was ready for the job because I had done so much managing in the minor leagues, had a winning record, had won some championships, and managed in Latin America. We won the Caribbean World Series after winning the Venezuelan championship. So I had success as a manager, and I always felt over the course of time that I learned enough through my mistakes to where I knew exactly how I wanted to be when I managed. When I first started managing in the minor leagues, I was an old school manager. I yelled and screamed, and that's just the way it was. It was hate me now, love me later, because I'm trying to help you get that type of thing. But over time, I just started realizing that hey, if you got good players and they perform, you're going to win, and you just got to keep everything together. And I think that's what made Manuel so good. He kept the temperature at the right temperature all the time. He was good with the players and kept them going positive. And he had his moments, but in general, he was a good players manager.
Yeah,
well, that's where Pete and I first met. Was in 1994. He was the Bowie Bay Sox manager.
Oh, that's right.
And I was.
You had more hair then, I think.
I did have more hair. I parted it to the side, and it was really flowing. So I was doing. I was my first year doing minor league baseball, and I was the radio guy and the PR guy for the Trenton Thunder. So I used to have to go into Pete's office and tell him if there was going to be a rain delay or not, which was I hated anyway. Having to do that to the visiting manager. But one time I was doing the game on television, and Rick Cerrone, the former catcher, was doing the color commentating, and I was in the back of the office when Rick and Pete were talking about Rick Forney pitching that night, and Pete goes, he's going to throw a no-hitter today.
Yeah,
and he threw a no-hitter.
No, it was a perfect game. He threw a perfect game.
7-inning perfect game.
That was unbelievable. He said, what can you expect from Forney? I said, I got a feeling he's going to throw a no-hitter today.
And he did.
Perfect game. I still have the lineup card from that.
I have my book still. I still have the book from there.
That's a great story, I think.
Yeah.
Were you saying that just to be a smart ass, or were you saying
yes, he was saying that to be a smart ass.
100%.
Not that we've ever seen that.
Did we say ass on this?
Yeah.
Huh?
Big.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he has a good game. I just I blurted it out.
He's managing in the independent leagues, and Tommy, my son, was playing against him, and he was telling him that story, Rick Forney, and he kind of looked at him like, he did?
Oh, he didn't know.
No.
No pressure. Well, Scott, Tom, final thoughts for Pete? I know we're going to see him in a couple of weeks when we head out to Arizona, perhaps, maybe.
I'd like
or are you vacationing at that point? You won't see us.
No, heck no. Usually here you like to get out of the heat during the summer. A lot of people go somewhere to get out of the heat, but we're having our monsoon season right now. We're getting a lot of rain, and for this week, I think for the next 7 or 8 days, the temperature is not going to go over 100, which is awesome.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's the.
I plan on coming to a game or two.
Tom can get you tickets. He knows people. So.
I get you tickets.
Can you?
Yeah.
Last year, Pete didn't come to the game, but he came to the hotel after the game.
That's right.
And he pulls up. It's 10 o'clock or whatever, and he pulls up next to me at the bar, and I turn and I look and I said, Pete Mackanin. And he looks at me. I said, how the heck are you? And he looks at me and he says, I don't have to tell you anything.
It's so great.
Exactly right.
See you in a few weeks, Pete.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for stopping by.
Tom, thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Hey, how much are we getting paid for this?
See, wait a minute. See, I know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I knew you did. You were.
So I have to grease these guys to do just about anything. That's the way it works. All right, I'll see you guys as we finish up.
Get them off the screen.
Hey, Murph, how many Altoids you got left in that can behind you?
Plenty. If you need
okay.
something. Yeah.
See you, Pete.
See ya. Thanks, Tom.
The best part, as you said, about a life in baseball is getting an opportunity to be around your teammates, the other coaches, the other people in the organization. I know in the period of time that we were lucky enough to have you here, and we had a lot of fun. And when you think back to those days in Philadelphia, I mean, you were here in 2009, obviously, World Series team and a ton of success, and then back again after that. It was a pretty special time in your baseball career, wasn't it, here in Philly?
You're not kidding. I had never been associated with a team with that good of a hitting team. The pitching was they were competitors. The pitchers were winning type. They had winning type attitudes, but the offense was just unreal. My wife and I used to laugh at this. I said, Nancy, because she's been with me my whole career. She said, you ever seen anything like this? She said, no, but how great is this? I mean, we could be down by 4 or 5 runs in the 7th or 8th inning, and I felt like we were going to win the game. It was that fantastic, and so much fun to watch, to see, and just a real pleasure. And then even in 2010, we fell short, but we played well. We won more games. 09, 10, 11, we won 102 games.
Yeah.
And then 12, we played 500, and I got fired at.
But only for a short period of time. They realized
that was weird.
Yeah. You went over to the Yankees right at that moment as a scout, and then by the next season you were back. It's
funny when in 07, in 06 and half of 07, I was the advanced scout for the Reds. Jerry Nairn got fired in July, and I took over for the last half of the year and got fired. And the Yankees hired me to scout. So I was all settled in, and Rhino at the end of September, or sometime in September, Rhino, after the season, I think it was, Rhino called me and asked me if I'd like to coach for him. I said, sure. I said, is it okay with the rest of the people with the Phillies? He said, yeah. So I go back to the Phillies. Okay. And in 09, 4 years. Right. And then get fired. 2013, the Yankees signed me again. That was when Rhino.
Yeah. And then Rhino. Yeah.
I mean, the first one was Ruben called me. That was it. Okay. So it's weird.
Was it a no-brainer to come back? I mean, when Rhino asked?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the thing I felt bad about is because what happened in 07, when I signed with the Yankees originally, I signed and I scouted in 08. I'm trying to get this right here. So at the end of the season, I get offered a 3-year contract for a nice contract. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. So I agreed to the contract. And that same day, or the day after, before I signed everything, Ruben called me and asked me if I'd be interested. And I said, I would, Ruben. I said, but you know what? I need at least a 2-year contract. I can't go for 1 year. I said, you know, I just got offered a 3-year deal. And he said, I'm not lying. I'm not, he said, I know you're not lying. So he called me back 10 minutes later and offered me a 2-year contract. So yeah, that was good. That was nice. And then just a funny career moves, you know, baseball. You stay in it long enough, that's going to happen to you.
Exactly right. Yeah. It happens to all of us. Happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way it works. Any regrets? Is there anything that you didn't get to do that, I mean, you know, obviously winning it all, you know, but any regrets in terms of the career that you didn't get a chance to do?
Well, I don't regret any choices I made. I regret the fact that I wasn't given an opportunity to, you know, I wasn't given a 3 or 4 year deal, you know, with the team. I always seemed to be inheriting a rebuilding team, or a team that needed to get somewhere. And once they started getting somewhere, they'd get somebody else. And I feel like, you know, I've managed enough, not only in the U.S., but in Latin America. And I even, when they had that in '89, they had that senior league. I was a player manager in that. Yeah. I've done everything, you know, but I regret the fact that I wasn't given a longer chance to stay with a team with good player, you know, winning players. And
yeah, and I'll say this, and I mean this. It's really, we regretted that too, because we all believed at that point in 2017 that you had earned the right, because the team was starting to play better. You know, under your tutelage, they were playing better. They were starting to add some pieces in. You know,
I have to laugh at. I had to, you know. Fortunately for me, it's funny because that year, if you remember, I was extended. My option was picked up in May for 2018, and then at the end of the season, Matt said, "You're not coming back." I said, "Wait a minute, didn't you just extend me?" But then he offered me some work, you know, to continue on in a different capacity.
In a different capacity. And you know, and that was the 50+ years that, you know, which is a special number. There's not many guys that can say they spent that much time in the game of baseball. You should be awful proud of that.
52 years in any industry or any job is a long time. No doubt.
Well, you look like you can still do it. For sure, but that's probably because you're not. and there's nothing wrong with that too, right?
I'm not?
I mean, you're not. You're relaxed now. You're stress-free. You're living the good life, and that's a good thing. So, congratulations. Hey, look, we really appreciate you jumping on and sharing some of the stories.
We done?
Yeah, well, I don't want to keep you too long. You know, that's the way it works. You know, we're full service here. We tell the stories and then we get out. But yeah, you know, we really appreciate it. You've always been a great storyteller. You've always made all of us laugh before games and after games. The perspective that you brought each and every day to the ballpark was certainly refreshing, and I for one appreciated it. And so I thank you for that.
Thanks, Murph. Hey, best of luck in what you're doing here. This has been fun for me.
Thank you. Pete Mackanin joining us here on Glove Stories with Murph. We'll take a break, but more to come, so stay with us.
The all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app is here for both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Get in on all the action, whether it's baseball, the basketball and hockey playoffs, golf, all your favorite sports. Download the all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app and make your first bet risk-free up to $750. Bet more than the score. Bet on individual player performances for hits, home runs, and strikeouts. Bet innings, first team to score, and more. BetParks is the only sportsbook and casino app that I recommend. The BetParks Casino and Sportsbook app, where odds, bets, slots, and games all come together in perfect harmony right in your pocket. Sportsbook and all your favorite casino games for real money, all in one amazing app. Live in-game betting lets you bet while you watch the game. Download right now in the App Store, Google Play Store, or at betparks.com and use my promo code Murph. BetParks is also an official proud betting operator of the PGA Tour. The all-new BetParks Casino and Sportsbook app. You must be 21 and in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome to This Week in Philly Baseball History, presented by Shibe Vintage Sports. This week in 2015, Cole Hamels threw a no-hitter in his final start with Philadelphia. The left-hander struck out 13 Chicago hitters in a 5-0 win at Wrigley Field. Hamels, Terry Mulholland, and Johnny Lush are the only Philadelphia left-handers to throw a no-hitter. Celebrate more Philly sports history with clothing from Shibe Vintage Sports, where there's a story in every stitch. Visit them at 13th and Walnut Streets or at shibesports.com.
Phillies Nation is your source for breaking news, original analysis, trade insights, and more. Read today's articles at philliesnation.com. And welcome back to Glove Stories with Murph. And it's the time on the program where we welcome in Larry Bowa and Charlie Manuel, get their thoughts on some big thought items in and around Major League Baseball. And as we approach and get into the trade deadline time in Major League Baseball, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on trade deadline deals that either did happen, didn't happen, were wildly successful or complete bust back when you were players and coaches in Major League Baseball. So, Charlie, I'll start with you. Can you think of a trade deadline deal that had a huge impact, whether you were a manager or a player at the time, that you could tell us a little bit about, whether it was a positive or a negative?
Yeah, Murph, I think the one that just pops into my mind and that really is Matt Stairs. I mean,
Yes.
To me, like the more I think about it, when somebody says, I say, I remember when we got Matt Stairs, and the fact that the big hit he got definitely was one of the bigger hits in our organization history, and definitely played a part in us advancing on into the World Series and stuff.
Yeah,
Really.
Sturzy's a great one. And he got, we all remember the hit in L.A., obviously, the home run in L.A.,
Right.
but he also got a couple of other big ones at the end of the season and going into the postseason. And then I think, Charlie, we can easily add Joe Blanton to that list because, here's a guy that came over without any fanfare, really, and perhaps with some people rolling their eyes and saying, really, this is what you're bringing us? And how good was Joe Blanton for you guys down there?
Yeah. Joe Blanton was one of our starters, and also you remember during the playoff days when we won the World Series in 2008, especially the game in Milwaukee. Blanton threw a big time game that day.
Yes.
That right there might have been a career game for him, and that's good. On Jason, you can give me some help on this because we've made acquisitions on our team at the midway point. Our guys were always good at that. Ed Wade, Pat Gillick and those guys and Ruben, they always look at that time of the year, to give us some help. And we got Scott Eyre and some guys that definitely played a part in helping us out of our bullpen. And even there's pitchers besides Scott Eyre that we got that helped us. But at the same time, too, those are kind of tough for me to really remember a whole lot about them, but at the same time too, we got help.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of what happened last season with the Atlanta Braves. They get riddled by injury at the trade deadline. Folks pretty much think they're going to be sellers. They decide to be buyers. They go in and they get 4 or 5 different pieces, none of which I don't know that anyone thought were going to be superstar pieces going forward, but obviously all 5 acquisitions that they brought in were outstanding for them in the second half of the season and right on through the playoffs and the World Series, and a huge reason why they won it all. And in a similar situation, that's kind of how it was
with the Phillies acquisitions in 08. Everybody that Pat and the guys brought in seemed to have a little bit of an impact. Larry, what about you? As a member of the team or a manager, what are your thoughts?
I think the biggest one for me was when I was with the Cubs in '84 when we got Rick Sutcliffe from Cleveland. I mean, he came over and he solidified that the Cubs hadn't won in I don't know how many years. We ended up winning the division. Of course, we lost to San Diego. But Sut came over with Mel Hall. And if I'm not mistaken, my memory's not quite what it was, but I think Joe Carter was involved in that trade.
Oh, how about that?
Going to Cleveland. It was a monster trade. Yeah. And Rick Sutcliffe won the Cy Young that year.
Yeah.
But he came over and he just pitched lights out. That was huge. The one in 80 we didn't get the guy on the roster for the World Series because it came after August 1st, but we got Sparky Lyle. And he came in. Okay. People don't realize that we got him. He wasn't eligible for the World Series because we got him too late. But that was another big trade. And then when I was with the Dodgers, we made another trade that helped really improve our infield and everything. And Charlie was over there then with Cleveland. We got Casey Blake from Cleveland in one of those trades, and they got the catcher sent back in return, who now plays first base. He played first base for Cleveland, and now he's playing first base for Seattle. But that was a monster trade for us. So they don't seem like a lot, but then when we sit back and you look at how the outcome of it was, especially the Cub one with Sutcliffe and Mel Hall, that was a monster trade for us.
Yeah, and Sutcliffe went on to have such a great career as a Cub too. You think about the impact that he had that season, getting you guys to the postseason. Can imagine what Chicago was like at that point as you guys were closing in on the division.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I bet. Any ones that didn't work out that you can think of? I know obviously they don't stick in your memory as much, probably because they don't work out, so we tend to forget those things. But anybody?
That's a good question. We made a trade with the Mets, I think, when we got Dykstra. And we got the two relievers, a lefty and a righty. I'm trying to think of their names, but the pitching part of it didn't work out.
Okay.
We thought they were going to pitch better. Obviously, Dykstra definitely worked out. He was huge. We had to give up some guys, though. We gave up Sammy. So those things happen. And then we made another trade. I don't know if it was at the deadline, but it was during the middle of the summer when we traded Willie Montanez to the Giants for Gary Maddox.
Yeah, huge one.
A huge trade. And at the time that happened, in fact, Gary Maddox kids me all the time. I keep saying, when they said, hey, we traded Montanez, they said, you got Gary Maddox. I said, who else did we get? And Maddox to this day says, who else did we get? Are you kidding me? Who might have been one of the best center fielders I've ever seen play. Yeah. So those things like that, those are tough calls because you're getting a guy and you're hoping he can come in. And people don't understand, Murph, when you come from another team to a team that's winning and they're supposed to win, there's a lot of pressure on that guy. They got to get used to the atmosphere in the clubhouse. They got to get used to new teammates. And everyone in the city knows, hey, you got this guy to get you over the hump. It doesn't always work out that way. There's a lot of pressure on those guys that get traded right at the deadline.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Much like free agency at the beginning of the season, that trade deadline acquisition. Gary said, what do you mean two people? I cover the outfield like two people. You only need me.
He probably covered it like three people.
Yeah, he probably did. Charlie, final thought on trades? I mean, just how important they can be for a team that is trying to get back to the postseason, hypothetically, for the first time in a decade.
Yeah,
Murph, like you're talking, I can't remember one that I thought that was bad for us. Really, I'll go back and I'll stay on the winning side of it. There at one time when we was in the postseason, when we talked about Matt Stars on our bench, when you can definitely increase the roster in September. We had like 3 or 4 left-hand hitters there. We had Tracy, we had Dobbs, we had Matt Stars. We had somebody else. I can't remember. If I'm not mistaken, we had 4 left-hand hitters on our bench, and we had a solid bench going down through September. Now, in the playoffs, the World Series, of course, I don't think Tracy was on our team, but our guys, for some reason, the guys that we bought in there, and I missed J.C. Romero in a pitching when I named him. Like that was a big one, our management was always good
at increasing, like our team, and most deals worked out. I can't remember one that really stood out. So they must not have made too many bad ones.
Yeah, well, that was a pretty magical time for the Phils.
Hey, Murph, there was one I left out, and it really wasn't a trade, but we did trade it, but I don't know what we got back, because when Dutch got traded to Miami, and they went on to win the World Series.
Huge. Right.
He was huge in that clubhouse. Jim Leland, to this day, says he was the biggest part of us turning this thing around, and, his leadership and everything. So there's, like Charlie said, most of them are pretty good deals, but there's a lot more pressure on the guys coming over to a contending team as opposed to going to a last place team. So people got to keep that in mind. It's different.
Jim Eisenreich tells a great story about the day that Darren Dalton arrived in Miami as a new member of the Marlins. He had been there maybe 2 or 3 days and called a team meeting and kind of laid it out for everybody as he had been there not even a week. And he tells the story on the podcast. So if you go back and listen to the Jim Eisenreich episode, it's a great story and just shows you what kind of leader Darren Dalton was and how important he was, obviously not to the Phillies, but also to that Marlins team that won the World Series. That's a really good one. All right. Trade deadline deals, mostly good that we remember here, and that makes a lot of sense. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but more to come here on Glove Stories, so stay with us.
Welcome to This Week in Philly Baseball History, presented by Shibe Vintage Sports. This week in 2015, Cole Hamels threw a no-hitter in his final start with Philadelphia. The left-hander struck out 13 Chicago hitters in a 5-0 win at Wrigley Field. Hamels, Terry Mulholland, and Johnny Lush are the only Philadelphia left-handers to throw a no-hitter. Celebrate more Philly sports history with clothing from Shibe Vintage Sports, where there's a story in every stitch. Visit them at 13th and Walnut Streets or at shibesports.com.
The all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app is here for both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Get in on all the action, whether it's baseball, the basketball and hockey playoffs, golf, all your favorite sports. Download the all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app and make your first bet risk-free up to $750. Bet more than the score. Bet on individual player performances for hits, home runs, and strikeouts. Bet innings, first team to score, and more. BetParx is the only sportsbook and casino app that I recommend. The BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app, where odds, bets, slots, and games all come together in perfect harmony right in your pocket. Sportsbook and all your favorite casino games for real money, all in one amazing app. Live in-game betting lets you bet while you watch the game. Download right now in the App Store, Google Play Store, or at betparx.com and use my promo code Murph. BetParx is also an official proud betting operator of the PGA Tour. The all-new BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app. You must be 21 and in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Phillies Nation is your source for breaking news, original analysis, trade insights, and more. Read today's articles at philliesnation.com. Glove Stories with Murph is sponsored by the BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app, along with Shine Vintage Sports and Phillies Nation, and is a presentation of SBC Media Partners. The engineer for Glove Stories is Chad Evans. Cindy Webster is our marketing and guest relations director, and our executive producer is Roger Haddon. Whether you are watching us on YouTube or downloading the podcast from one of the major podcast providers like Apple, Google, or Spotify, make sure to hit like and subscribe so that we can let you know when a new episode of Glove Stories is available. We'll release new episodes weekly throughout the 2022 Major League Baseball season.